Hey, everybody, and welcome to another Everyday Intuition. I am conscious medium Brandon Russ, and I'm welcoming you here today for a really interesting conversation about creativity, spirituality, and being on your path. I have the honor, the privilege to be joined today by Megan Kindred, and she is going to actually talk a lot about her soul connection cards, about the process, about how it came to be. She also does intuitive work. She does intuitive coaching. She does a lot of work around what culminated into her cards. Megan, welcome. Thank you so much for being part of things here today.
Oh my God, thank you guys so much for having me. I'm super excited.
And of course, by guys, she's talking about me as well as Beth Sagnelli. Beth has actually been working with these cards for a while and is really kind of shouting from the rooftop about how incredibly connective they are in her work as an intuitive spiritual life coach, as well as being able to really kind of want to understand the creative process. Beth, welcome. It's awesome that you're here today as well.
Thanks, Brandon.
All right. So it's a really kind of open door when you have like such a really cool product with this, and we're going to get into all the gushing parts of this. Two things that really struck me about these cards is, how well they're made, the artwork attached to it. But I also know that when you create a spiritual product, it has to be part of like who you are. You can't just say, oh, I'm part of this, oh, I'm part of that, and then put your name on it and just say, okay, here you go. Talk a little bit about like how you work with intuition every day, how you started to work with your gift as a whole. Even before the cards, what were the first couple of steps that you took, for your own understanding of your work?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I actually didn't ever think about it until you and I started speaking. I didn't realize, I didn't have an intention of creating an oracle card deck. It sort of just came about. Do you want me to go like all the way back?
Well, start like right after zygote. Usually
Okay.
you start to,
How about
so
we
right
started,
after that.
Okay.
A little before then, but it's up to you. It's all good.
So what was
why did you take classes? Why did you develop your intuition? Why did you, begin to work with spirit? What were the things that made you go, holy crap, I have something here, I should work with it?
Well, it started back then. Like it started like 7, the age of 7 is a really profound moment for me. It was around that time that I would tell my mom, like that I see things when I would be like laying in bed and they'd go away when I sat up, and I didn't really understand what that was. And she would tell me, it's okay, we just pray for them. They just need our prayers to get to where they're going. And, we were Roman Catholic, and I was at that still age 7, I was still a very good daughter. So I was like, okay. So I did what I was told and I prayed and they would go away, and I didn't think much of it. But also around that time, my first grade teacher introduced us to this concept that everything's energy, right? And when she explained this to me, everything, like I was so astounded, but at the same time, I like nestled in. It made so much sense to me. And we started talking about, infinity and eternity, and those concepts just resonated at that age. And it was just so comforting. And like I would be mesmerized for hours thinking about infinite eternity, right?
Would you daydream about them? Like, would you just kind of like be like pondering this, 7, 8-year-old kid going like, here are the wonderments of the world. Like, did you use like, daydreaming and imagination?
I did. And I think a lot of the time I wasn't sure what was daydream and imagination and what I was really seeing. It was hard at that age. Even now to look back, I don't know what was real and what wasn't, right?
Yeah, I say this on my path. I mean, growing up, I had a lot of imaginary friends, but the reality is they were just dead people. My mom, my parents, when I would talk about it, it would be like, if I framed it as an imaginary person, they're like, oh, that's so cute. That's so creative. And meanwhile, I'm like, well, Larry just got hit by a bus, so we're going to kind of work this out with him.
Right.
And it was always kind of interesting.
Well, I had an imaginary friend, Lisa, and when we would go out to dinner, I would always order like a cheeseburger and a cherry soda. It was like, who is that for? And it was like, well, it's for Lisa. And they were like, but she was like, there was really, Anyway.
This is great. It's like, so, by the way, this is the part of like indigo parenting. It's like, you don't get to claim the spirit that they're working with as like a tax write-off. Like, you still got to pay the bill. It's like, well,
exactly.
I know nobody touched it physically in the 3D world, but yeah, it's Lisa. It's
you got to remember, like, I don't know what your upbringing was, but as Roman Catholics, like, this was not something like, it's like, yeah, no, she's imaginary, Megan, move on, grow up out of it.
Did your parents, I mean, I'm sure, when you're, in first grade, you're what, 6, 7 years old,
yeah.
You're so open. Did, in your conversation about infinity and energy and fascination with it, in your conversation with your parents, did they link that to, kind of like angels and?
Not necessarily. I mean, they would always link it back to God, right? Like, it was always like, well, yes, God created us and God is forever and God is everything and all of that. And really, let me show you this. At the same age, so my grandparents took this picture outside of an airplane window. And I was still 7 years old. When I found this, I was like, oh, you see that?
Oh my goodness.
Holy Toledo.
So, right. Wow. So this was like, infinity, eternity. I see this picture, all this stuff at 7 years old. And then I had this moment. We were driving to church one day, sitting in the back seat of my dad's Toyota hatchback. And they're talking, and I'm just, probably off thinking about, am I going to get a Laffy Taffy after church? And all of a sudden, like, I see this image of, the like where they keep the song numbers at the front of the church with like the hymns that they're going to sing that day. I saw it in my mind's eye and I saw the numbers, but the one that stood out was 333. And I'm like, oh, that's weird. And, I didn't say anything. So we get to church and we're walking in, and then I hear On Eagle's Wings. And I'm like, okay. And I'm not saying anything to anybody. I'm holding my mom's hand. I'm walking into church, right? So we get into church, we sit in the pew, and I look up, and sure as shit, there's the hymns, and 333 is right in there. So I grab my missile and I'm like, looking around like, does anybody know what's going on? And I like thumb to 333 and I close my eyes real tight and I open the book, and 333 was On Eagle's Wings. So that was like the first time that I thought, wait, did I just do that? Like, I didn't understand what I had. Like, I didn't know if I did that. I didn't know what that was.
What's incredible about this is and I coach a lot of people through their spiritual journey, and everyone has that moment that they go back to where they're like, oh, this was something. Sometimes they're like sincere moments of like change or challenge, but a lot of the times they're about like, there's always a mix, but there's always that one moment where you're like, oh my gosh, I started putting this together. And the 333 is going to come up again later on in our conversation with all your other work. But it's interesting because when you get that profound moment, what a gift. And then when you're able to kind of put that together. So what is the 333 to you? What's the angelic meaning? Like, have you pieced it all together?
Well, it's my connection. It's my soul number. It's my, you're in. It's my, when I'm locked in, that's when I'm aligned with my soul and my true highest self. Like, that's my number. And
that's your soul path number?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's incessant. You look at the clock all the time and it's always 33 minutes after the hour. And my kids, they used to say, I forget what they used to call it. Be like, oh, that's so creepy. And I'm like, no, it's really absolutely beautiful. And it does, it constantly comes up. But what else always came up was this connection to like God and the soul somehow. When I was a teenager, I came home from high school one day and laid down on the bed, and I call it that I was taking a nap, but really what it was, all of the people that I had known that had passed over, my grandmother, my great-grandmother, my dance teacher's father, who I was really close to, my aunt, they all were standing over me. singing You Are My Sunshine. And I was 17 years old, and I was like, I couldn't open my eyes, and I knew what was happening. And I'm like, oh my God, like, why, and I still didn't know, like, I didn't make any sort of connection.
Right.
It was just like,
And it's funny, I can't tell you how many times, and then you probably also find this in your readings where, your own psychic dictionary, which is by definition the way that you define like how you're going to receive gifts, whether it's 333, My Only Sunshine, you'll get the comfort of knowing that there is a connection there because you'll be like, I faintly hear this. Is this a grandparent? So, then you start to piece together and be like, okay, well, I'm getting this person that's connected to you, that's a guardian, that's going to come to you, that's connected to you. I hear the sunshine song. And they may be like, no, that's not it. But in your dictionary, you're like, this is somebody that really helped me.
exactly.
And I think really, what a gift. You've had one spiritual like moment after another to kind of lead up to this.
And then the final one, well, there were multiple others, but the one that really created, like, that was the catalyst for all of this. And like true diving into intuitive development and realizing there's really something here I need to explore is I was 34. I was, in a marriage for almost 10 years that was very challenging for a number of reasons. I have two absolutely beautiful children from that marriage, but I was in church one day by myself, and On Eagle's Wings was playing. And I was just sitting there, in my space, and out of literally nowhere, the voice was so loud that just said, your soul has been awakened. And it was so loud that I did one of those, like, like, who else heard that kind of thing? And everyone else is just sitting there, like praying. And I'm like, what the actual, like, what is happening? And I couldn't deny it anymore. I think for so long, like, I just didn't want to go there. Right. But this was undeniable. And after that, it was just fast and furious. I went through my divorce. I started, like, literally dove into studies like the Akashic Records and Edgar Cayce and past life regressions and Brian Weiss and Michael Newton and all this soul stuff. And I was manifesting like a mofo this entire time. Like, if I could only tell you half the stuff I manifested, I was like, oh my God, I did that.
It really works, right?
Right. But it was just so like, it was so much, so fast. And I stumbled upon my mentor. Her name's Nicole Stevens. She's out of New Hampshire. And she was offering intuitive development courses. And I didn't hesitate. I was just like, yeah, of course, I have to do this. And it was intuitive development, which evolved into mediumship, which evolved into a year-long mentorship program, one-on-one, she and I. And it was during that year that shit really got real. And, I'd be journaling and it would suddenly, I know how people feel about, channels and channeling, but something would happen. Like, I'd just be journaling and all of a sudden I'd start writing in third person. And the stuff that I was writing, like, I was connected to it, but it was so profound that, like, I didn't really know what was happening. And then I would go back and read it and be like, oh, crap. Like, that was like Wayne Dwyer shit. Like, what is that?
Yeah.
Like, your guides were speaking to you.
But I didn't, like, I couldn't, you know what it was? I didn't want to accept it. Like, I didn't feel like, nah, this can't really be.
Listen, I'll say it. I'll say it first, and then Beth can run with this. So this is what happens. You get this core basic thing where you see this series of events, and then finally they're just like, listen, if you're not going to do this, we're going to do it for you. And then you get kind of thrust into it. And then you think to yourself, it's the Mary complex. It's the, am I worthy? It's being able to understand, like, okay, really, I'm going to deliver like messages of healing. I'm going to do this. I can understand this. I can manifest where I need to be. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting is that, the people that really kind of, this is actually the stuck point for so many people when you begin to do this work, 100%. They try and figure out an angle that they always stay inside their comfort zone. They always stay inside that part where they're like, well, I don't want to, I'm never going to say anything against, whatever that religious thing and all that other other stuff. By the way, you're Megan, just to let you know, you're also hanging out with a couple of other Catholics. It's all good. It shakes a little when we walk in, but nothing falls down. And then and then on the other side of that, you also have the dynamic that is a really cool part to this that you said, and that is you began to find teachers. You began to find people and like-minded tribe that was able to kind of maneuver. And then it's like, and then you start to find other pods and other places. And I think, for me, this isn't a reading as much as just what I always see happen. You created this really cool thing with this Soul Connection card deck of inspirational oracle stuff, and you're just going to become a magnet to that. And I'm not saying that as a reading. I'm saying that's, of course, this is happening to you. And hearing the backstory of it, it's 100% acceptable for you to be like, okay, now that I kind of ripped the Band-Aid off, now it's like, okay, trying to figure that stuff out. And you brought up a lot about the soul, and this is like right in Beth's wheelhouse. So I'm going to take a half a step back because I know she's going there with the soul connection part of it. Beth, what do you think?
Oh, God, I had such a similar path as you, Megan. But amazingly enough, I kind of had an awakening when I went to a true awakening when I went to do a workshop with James Van Praagh at the Omega Center, and truly life changing, deep dive. But when I came out of that, I decided to embrace my gifts like you, but it wasn't really clear what those were, and really did some soul searching and some praying about which road I should go down, mediumship or spiritual life coach first. And they gave me spiritual life coach. I'm going to tell you this because of the soul path, because we can't, unless we figure out and fix,
right,
figure out who we are, we can't live our soul path. So these cards speak directly to a client's soul.
Yeah.
And, they're definitely a gift to this 3D world. So it really makes people think, and incredibly enough, spirit really comes through there. So thank you for that. I get you.
You're so welcome.
So let's talk about the soul a little bit. Being by the way, the other idea for calling this podcast, it was going to be like three Catholics talk about like, how do we rationalize doing this work all the time, right? No, but it's the concept of soul and the construct of soul. I mean, how did you develop that, Megan? Taking that from that, and and I even give Beth, you the same question, because I think this is super interesting, because I think that sometimes there's a lot of conflict with the root. I call it the root conflict. Your family doesn't appreciate, your culture doesn't appreciate, your faith doesn't appreciate. And then you have to kind of mold that to another level to help you understand like how it all fits together. And so then you can be reconciled and be able to be satisfied and be able to know that you're doing something that you can feel, compelled to. Like, what's your take on the soul and how you think it fits together with this work?
Can I ask you a real quick question, Megan?
Sure.
What was, a lot of people step into this, and they step into it in a place of being very broken, or having some tragedy, happen to them, and looking for answers for that, which in turn, requires them to go within, which is the beginning of soul work. Was there something like, and you don't have to share, but was there something like that in your life where you're just like, this is really like a dark time for me? And
yeah, I mean, I didn't have many dark times. I had a lot of challenging moments, a lot of moments where I wanted to trust myself, but was told that it wasn't safe to do that, not just by myself, but other people told me, no, like you can't do that. And then I think when I trusted myself enough to, marry my first husband, and then to see how challenging that relationship became and how, polarized I felt in that relationship, and how unhappy and unfulfilled I was. That was a very dark time for me. And it made me question, well, but I made this choice.
Mhm.
Like this felt right to me. And if I did this and this was the outcome, how right am I? And so that I would say, the combination of just the turmoil that I felt within the relationship, but the inner turmoil of, oh my God, I thought that I was right. I took a leap of faith and this is what happened. Like I can't be right. You know what I mean though? It was just
I didn't sign up for this, right?
Like, oh, I
Mhm.
really don't know what I'm talking about.
Mhm.
So I'm fortunate enough that I didn't have any terrible, like there were no tragedies. I would not categorize anything in my life as a real tragedy. And I know that I'm fortunate in that regard. But I would say that was like the darkest part for me, was
Mhm.
coming to terms with that decision and learning to retrust myself after that.
Right. Not, I guess I should have reframed that. Not necessarily like a tragedy and something horrible happened to me, but something that does make you question like where you are in that moment of your life,
Yeah.
and that nothing feels right.
And I think it was that, I had everything that should have been perfect. Like I should have had the perfect life. I had the husband, I had the 2 beautiful kids, I had the great house, I had the dog, I had a great job. Things were great, but they weren't.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was just that constant gnawing inside of me. Like there's so much, like I knew there was more.
Do you feel like that was your soul speaking to you?
It was I know that it was my soul.
Yes.
And I know that, and I think that I'm also fortunate in that, to speak of the soul and to speak about it, I have the support of my religion, like Christianity, like they do support the idea of souls, right? And heaven. And like, it's a totally different construct than what I know it to be. But I feel like it was a little bit easier to at least talk about the soul, to people that are of a more religious background. Like it was easier to introduce that. Now, when I told my mom that I was a medium, well, that was a whole different story.
How did that go? Wait, I think we have some podcast gold coming up. Go ahead, Megan.
It involved a lot of wine.
And by the way, I always equivocated this to like coming out of the closet.
And
like
and I do
100%.
too. Right, but you know what? Like I don't want to take anything away from the LGBT community. Like
Sure.
I don't know what that's like, but I can imagine like if it was this hard for me,
Yeah.
like, you only get that much more compassion for them and their struggles of coming out, right? Because it was that. It was like, oh,
was it red or white wine? That's what I want.
Hers was red, mine was white.
Okay.
Yeah. And
I love that. And so you kind of set the table. You're like, welcome to Cana. Let me talk to you a little bit about how, Mom, let's talk about the soul for a minute. And it's like, oh, you really are 3 glasses in. Let's go.
Yeah.
So the way I started it was, Mom, remember when I was little and I would like see things and you told me that we had to pray for those people. And she was like, yeah. And I'm like, well, like I see them a lot now, like all the time by choice. And she's like, what are you saying? Like, what do you mean you're a medium? Like, are you saying you're a medium? Go.
I don't need to laugh, but that is.
That's how it was. Like, what do you mean? What are you saying, Megan? What do you mean? Well, I'm saying it. Like, this is part of what I'm exploring right now. Well, do you still believe in God? That was her, after she acknowledged this whole medium. Well, do you still believe in God? I said, well, I believe in the spirit. Like, I believe that we're, I made the mistake of saying, I believe that we're all God. And she's like, what are you, get me another glass of wine. And
it's like, well, at least, it's, you can say a lot of negative, disparaging things like, oh gosh, at least you're not this, that, or the other thing. But it's funny how you had to negotiate that, because I think a lot of people go through that when they build in their intuition, because, and then you have to look at, the friendships and the family, and it kind of starts with that. I mean, this sounds like a funny question, but you're going to know what I mean by that. Have you lost any friends because you're a medium?
I didn't ever really have that many friends to begin with, which I don't know if a lot of people
clean and lean, keep going.
Right. But family, I will tell you, my mom's parents, my grandparents were really good Catholics. They had 10 kids, right? So I have 10 aunts and uncles. I have like 180 cousins, probably not. It's more
so
like
Eastern Pennsylvania is basically your entire family tree. Got it.
Yes, exactly. But like,
is there like a town named after you, or?
There should be.
Yeah,
there should be. But a lot of them, like they, when they started seeing me post, like changing my posting style on Facebook, like, they've sort of fallen away. Like, some of it we can attribute to COVID, but they're just like, it's scary to them, and that's okay. Like, I understand it. But to answer your question, I have, you do start to lose those people, and I'm okay with that. It's okay. Mm-hmm. I still love them. And I know they still love me. They're just scared.
That's a great perspective. And it's a high emotional IQ too. I mean, I remember when I broke in, I was kind of like, and I want all my friends to come. I want to show them what I can do and all of that stuff, all based in ego, blah, blah, blah. My copay's good. I've worked that stuff out. But for me, it was very much part of the journey where I also started to realize how much my attachment model was, that I was trying to impress other people. And I'm like, that's not what this work is at all. It's about making sure that you've got that connection in the right moment. So it sounds like it was a little more seamless, or at least it had moments of seamlessness. And it's not like you didn't have the same struggles, but it's like you had, you had kind of that support, but you knew how to frame it. And, that's also really important in messages. I mean, like, how do you receive messages? Like, what clairs would you say are your specialty? How do you really, how do you then fine tune your messaging?
Yeah, I'm primarily clairaudient, and then secondary clairvoyant. So most of my stuff comes in when I'm in the shower, probably like with you. And it's always that
I'm just going to leave now, because you and Beth are just going to talk for days.
It's always that moment of like, oh my God, do I rinse out the shampoo first before I get out and start typing on the, thumb typing on the phone? Or do I just do it now?
I know. Could I just put my robe on,
Like, right, but what about the shampoo? Like, I got to rinse, and it's like, oh my God, how long is it going to, because there's a timestamp on this stuff.
Wait a minute, did I forget to shave?
Right. Or like only half? Like, I don't know. It's always a mess.
Yeah.
But I primarily, like, a lot of my stuff does come in when I'm showering. When I intend to receive messages, I'll just be journaling, and I'll ask the question. I usually write it at the top of my page, what is the message that I need to share today? And then I'll just go about my regular journaling until it clicks in. And it's sort of just like it drops in sort of sideways, like usually with my right ear. And then I'll just start hearing it, and I'm just writing and writing and writing and writing. And I mean, does that answer your question? Like, I just hear it, and it just comes through. And it's when I'm done, then I look back and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. All right, now I get it. So I'm always asking, like, if I want to, for example, my one of the courses that I offer that I love so much, it's called Soul Led. The idea of that dropped in during a shower. And then for about 3 days after, I would just say, what does it look like? What does it entail? And then I would just let it come in. And I would, sometimes I have a day job too. So sometimes when I'm working, like, I'll start hearing something and I'm like, oh, gotta like shift gears a little bit and just start. Like, you just have to be open to when they're ready. Like, when it's coming, it's coming.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
you can't just be like, hold on a second. Like,
yeah, switching the hats are a really good thing. Like, I think that's kind of the, that to me, I think is that's really impressive, because most people, when you get that change, you can't have that Jerry Maguire moment where you hold up a goldfish and say, who's coming with me? you quit, you walk out the door, and then like nothing's behind you. You didn't plan, you didn't do it. And you're like, then, you know, when you're desperate and you're trying to like, you know, find money everywhere, you're never going to be in equilibrium, because you've got to, you know, you've got to at least be set in the 3D world. Even if you're not thriving, you still have to at least be set and not like try and figure out, you know, those things. I think it's really cool about the creative process too. I mean, how did you get the inspiration for the deck to begin with? Like you said, it's kind of been like a slow burn and kind of growing, building into it. What was your lightning bolt moment where you're like, oh my gosh, I think I'm channeling cards here? How was that process?
Yeah, so it was during that year-long mentorship that I was under, and she had said to me, why don't you handle my Tarot Tuesdays in my Facebook group? And I was like, no. I mean, full disclosure, I know nothing about tarot. Brandon, you show me a tarot card, I'd be like, okay, that's pretty. Like, I don't, I'm not even going to, that's nice. I don't know what that means.
I've got, okay.
And your viewers are probably like, oh my God.
No, I actually really appreciate this.
Tarot class.
I really appreciate this, because I actually teach a class called The Art and Science of Tarot. And, you know, the person that I partner with this, he's an engineer. Like the dude's an engineer. He doesn't, you know, when I hold up a card and I'm like, oh, here's the Knight of Pentacles. This is a, you know, solid offer. This is, you know, the knight that finishes the race. This is blah, blah, blah. He looks at it and he just kind of sits there and goes like, here's what the book said. Here's what I say. Here's when I add in a little bit of spirit. So this is what it means to you. He lets intuition tell the connective part.
Got it.
But he says the definition part of it. Where with your cards, the type of reader you are is, you know, if I show you a card, you know, I'm going to hold up a card, like, you know, what does, I'm going to hold up the Hermit card. So when I hold up the Hermit card, like, what's your intuition tell you?
Yeah. I mean, it's more like follow your inner light. Like it's an opportunity for solace, but to be listening internally. Like,
yep.
I can't see. Yeah. I mean, it's, I feel a lot of like the need to trust your inner self. I do feel like there's a lot of falling away around you, and it's like going in and burning that inner light to make it shine brighter and follow that guidance.
I'm just going to go ahead and point to the set and go, there's the light right there, kid.
Okay.
There it is. So, I mean, you know, I'm randomly picking a card, doing that, but you know, in your own process, and your teacher should be really proud to be able to kind of like go into that moment. What's your teacher's name again? I want to give her a lot of credit here.
Sure. Nicole Stevens. It's
Nicole. And by the way, I'm going to get permission to put her link in underneath if anybody wants to take a look at her intuitive development work. This is one of those, you know, moments where you were in the moment and you're just like, okay, B, here you go. Here's what I'm getting in this.
Yeah.
And I think that actually translates into, for me, from a characteristic standpoint, that means that really helps you create a deck like this.
Yeah.
You know, it really does. And it's funny when Beth and I were talking about like, okay, what makes her tick? Like what? And it wasn't like we're trying to be psychologists. What do you do and how can we get better? It's more of like, I was overwhelmed with this. Her Beth's excitement on this was like all I needed to know to move forward with it. And, you know, it's staying in the moment where when you pull out the truth card, like there's so many other different meanings. And Beth, I know you've got, you know, questions about it and, you know, takes on the deck and flow of info. What do you think?
Right. I know why I was drawn to it now and why I feel the beautiful energy, because it sounds like she kind of threw you into spirit guided tarot. And that's kind of what I call it. I don't know all the definitions either, Megan. I just know that I allow spirit to come through for the client. But also I found with these cards, amazingly enough, that their guides come through for them.
Yeah.
Which is something that people don't acknowledge. And then there's that teaching moment and then all the detail in the cards to point out to that client, especially, you know, I usually save this for the last or next to last, just so that I can have the client reflect. These are very reflective cards. And I'm amazed by them. And I'm just so curious, where did they come from? Like, did you channel them?
I did. So what was happening when she told me to do the Tarot Tuesday class or the readings, I was like, I can't do that. So instead, I'm just going to have people pick a number from 1 to 4, and then I'm just going to read their energy. And so that's what I started doing. And that's when it hit me after like 2 weeks, and people were like, oh my God, that's exactly what's happening. And it was everybody that chose number 2 needed the same message. Everybody that chose, 3 and 4 and so on. And the way that it was happening was, I would just sit in my space. I'd look at their numbers and I would ask, what do I need? What do I need to relay? And then it would just start coming through and I would start writing. And as I did it week after week, and it was having such an impact, and the people were like applying the guidance. So, right, like it's first an acknowledgement of what they're going through, right? And then some gentle guidance to get them through it to the next phase. And as they were applying the guidance, they were like, oh my God, like it's just so easy now. Like I just feel so much better. And I started realizing like, this is bigger than just them. Like more people probably should hear this. And that's when, I talked to Nicole and we were like, yeah, we should probably do a deck. And I'm like, really? Is that like, okay. And so I just, I would scribe the messages. I started saving them and putting them away. And then when I got introduced to the designer, I said, look, I have ideas for images for each card. And so we sort of worked together in creating the images. But what's interesting to me is, when you look at like a particular card, like acceleration, for example, you intuit a message from that, right? There's a lot of momentum. There's a lot of quick things moving forward. But when you look at the message in the guidebook for the cards, they don't always match up. And I mean, a lot of that was truly by design, but I don't know if everybody realizes that. Brandon, I know that you've seen it.
I picked up on it in 2.2 seconds or I should say 3.3 seconds if I'm talking to you. It was, in every deck has an approach, right? Every, whether you're talking angels, whether you're talking unicorns, and the sincere difference between tarot decks and oracle decks is that tarot is based on the tarot structure, which is a major arcana, minor arcana. You got 22 and 70. I mean, you've got all of the structured pieces of it. You've got suits, you've got, where the major arcana talks about the overarching things that are going on in your life, and the minor arcana talk about the individual, actions or approaches that you can take into life. And when you weave it together, it tells a story. With an oracle card deck like yours, I think Beth nailed it. And that is, it opens the door for everybody to start to communicate, because they're empirical truths that you can find. You can find that connection between you and as someone that does this for a living, you're always trying to do this, whether it's a reading or whether it's whether it's tarot, whether it's, oracle readings, card readings. You're trying to find an intrinsic truth to connect to that's going to come through in messages. And I think that is really important. Now, your guidebook as well, I think there's 2 things I'd love to really kind of hear the process on. First of all, how did you choose your artist? And then how did the book come to be?
Yeah.
The guidebook.
So the artist was a friend of Nicole's, who had worked with Nicole on a design for a box that she had created. She's in Serbia. She's a wonderful woman, very creative. She is a graphic designer. And then so we just started working together. I would send her some of my messages. I would give her ideas like, this is the type of woman that I want to see in the deck. This is what I feel like she should be doing. These are the expressions that she should be having. And then she would just start sending me things. And we would just, would take about a week per card, per image, I would say, for us to, really work through what I was trying to convey in the card, as well as, her own artistic expression, right? And a lot of what I wanted to do was not only capture what I knew the meaning of the card to be, but what would speak more broadly to other people who just need to intuit the message, right? Because if you remember, a lot of this process was me just trusting myself, right? Fully accepting and surrendering to all of those little spiritual blips on my life's radar, and just surrendering to that and learning to retrust myself. And that's what I wanted other people to start doing too. So I didn't want to get too detailed in the card, right? Like I wanted them to be able to intuit and trust their own like their own interpretation of the images. So we worked on it it was about a little less than a year, I would say, that we worked on the deck itself. All the while, I mean, I already had the card messages prepared. And then I just sort of plugged in like the little bits and pieces on how to do it, and this is how they came to be. And
so the process was, it sounds like, did you channel the book? So was the book written first and then you expounded on it?
Yeah. So these messages are the messages that I was like channeling during those Tarot Tuesday readings. And then when I saw that that's what was happening, then I was like, okay, I took some of them and put them into the book. And then others that I would just like, it became my thing to do. Like, that's what made me feel good. Like, I'm just going to channel stuff and get messages, and then that'll be a card. And then this will be a card, and this will be a card.
So did you wait for that message, or
no, it was intentional. It was very intent. Like a lot. So what I like, the biggest thing with me is like, I want to intend my life, right? And I intend it from the essence of my soul, right? And I have this whole thing on like what the essence of the soul is and its virtues. And that also dropped in to me. So it's whatever I intend to receive. I play my part. I'm going to ask what do I need to know about this? And then I allow the universe to co-create with me, right? So my soul kind of steps in and gives me the information. And then I play my part next and I share that information. Does that make sense? So like,
yes,
I don't just wait for the card. It's like, okay, I want a message that I can use for a card. So I set that intention and then I just receive it. And then I do my part with that message and deliver it. And then it's just like a circle. It just sort of keeps going.
Well, these cards certainly make that mind-soul connection, which is, what I hope, people who sit down really understand and embrace. Interesting what you said about the book, because I find that when somebody looks at a card very confused, I will open the book and read, and it clears up the confusion. So that's a really interesting path of your cards, the soul cards, the connection. And they are the ultimate mind-soul connection for tarot. They really are. So.
You. And it was intentional that there are 52 of them because Brandon, I think you had said like they're very reflective, or Beth, it was you that said like it takes a lot of reflection, and it was intentional. I thought, you know what, if people use these once a week, what message does their soul need to provide them for that week? And they sort of reflect on that card for the week, right? And see where things are sort of dropping in and aligning with that soul's message for that week. Now I use them every day, and I know a ton of people do as well, but it was, it was by design that there were 52 cards for that, self-reflection, to give yourself enough time.
And that's certainly, they are cards of consciousness. So if you're pulling your cards every day, or a card, and you're really thinking about it, you're really thinking about your soul, which, in turn, elevates the consciousness to the things going on around you, right?
Exactly.
I'm just curious, the numbers on the card, were they significant at all for you? Or just, as it flowed, that was the number?
It was sort of as it flowed, that was the number. I wish I could say that even the 33 card actually meant something to me, but I don't even know what card 33 is. Yeah.
I like your sheer honesty right now, as in like, so I'm going to make 33 and 333 and 33 all over again. Threes are a big thing for me. 333, 3. I don't even know what my 33 card is. So what is it?
And I don't. And it's the strength card. And to be honest with you,
well, of course it is.
Right, but I would have totally picked a different image for the 33rd card.
Listen, that's badass. I like it.
It is two mediums just like lost their mind, where it's like, of course it's 33 is your strength card.
Yes, of course.
I have to read the message. No.
Well, yeah, I mean, get to know your book, but it's one of those things that it's like, as you I'm going to tell you why I love this as the symbolism for you within the strength card is because, you had to go within. This is about finding your inner, part to this. And by the way, the best, the best laid swords are the ones that are never used. Right. So it's not, it doesn't mean that you're going in, with a fiery sword. It just simply means that you had to go within. You were ready to defend who you were, whether it was your mom over a glass of wine, whether it was your, cousin 3 towns over in Altoona. It doesn't matter.
Right.
What it mattered was that you had to go within and you felt compassionate and passionate enough to care that you were going to come out of this and deliver it. I mean, it takes a lot to take this from like your center space and then bring it out like that. Have you been like surprised how many people are like reacting to this?
Yeah. And I'm sort of like, what do you mean? Like, oh, that's nice. And then I'm sort of like, okay, like that's enough of that. Like, let's talk about you instead.
So when I called, Beth a fangirl, you were just like, oh no, oh, what's that, right?
I hope you took that as a compliment.
Oh my God, I absolutely did. In fact, in my mind, I'm like, oh, like, am I going to have to?
Because I'm not stalking you.
Am I going to like sign her bra or something? I don't know.
I have to tell you, I see this 33 card that you're talking about. Mm-hmm. You have the moon in the background, which is, just so divine. And it almost looks like source is raining down on you if you really, just
all of the stars and the light.
And then there's this raining light coming down on you as it's like, this is your card you're receiving, like you did with this deck.
Right.
So
you're absolutely right.
That's my take.
Thank you for pointing that out to me. Thank you, guys.
Megan, like, I think that when you really do this work, this is so funny. This is the reason why you need a tribe around you of other like-minded people that, first of all, will tell you the truth. Second of all, be able to bring you, forward to your best interest and not manipulate and all that other, middle school stuff. But then also be able to say to you, do you even realize like how good you are at this? Or do you even realize that, like, I mean, think about the impact of having your numbered card be the strength card.
Right.
That was your gift from spirit saying to you, like, dude, you're doing us a solid here. Let's bring
thank God for you guys. Thank you for thank God that you were able to point this out to me.
Well, but it's all kind of part of the path. And I think that's kind of why, it's certainly why I think I'm intrigued with this, the creative process, the spiritual process, because they really do go hand in hand. There's that creative. And by the way, I think we launch a lot of quote unquote creative things that are really things of the spirit. It's that in the moment thing. I mean, and Beth, I know you have some other insights with the deck itself and how you use it. So I want to do this. I want to actually show a little bit of like your website, some of your social media, and Beth, maybe it'd be fun if you did like a 3-card read for Megan.
Yes,
I gotta come out of my fan card girl mode, right?
No, but I think
it's so exciting.
Well, you know what though, Beth? I mean, it's
all good. It's all good.
Good. I think in full complement though, I think it's the type of thing I think you can both kind of see from a perspective, like, how that kind of goes. So as you do your centering work, I'm gonna drop over to the screen here, and show some pictures of these cards. Now, if you go to megankindred.com, even your last name Kindred, come on, of course you're connected. I started laughing about that as I'm like writing things down.
Well, and where the street that I lived on when I was 7, when all this stuff started happening, was Kindred Street. So,
Are you kidding me?
no.
And by the way,
So there is a street named after you. Not a town, but a street.
There's a street, right.
Not a town, but a street.
Right.
I think this is fantastic. And, and again, this is just, one of the things that are, just a quick example of the types of, the type of artwork that's attached to this. And your special right here, highly recommended. All these links are going to be down below. The goal, everything from like the cardstock and, just all of this, I think are really, really impressive. You've got a couple of specials that are on here. I think that's really cool. You can buy one, get one scenario. And then of course, if you want to learn more about you yourself, here onto the, really kind of about what your path is all about. And then of course, over in the, over on the service side of it, I do want to ask you a little bit more, maybe after the reading, is about your work and how you channel and how you connect, so forth and so on. I mean, I love that part of it, but I also want to make sure that, you're out there in Facebook land, that soul led, 30-day companion that you mentioned a little bit. Here's some other examples of the, of the cards, and they're just beautiful. I mean, they really are just beautiful. Your shop is right out there, and this is going to grow. And then of course, over on Instagram, which is fun.
7. That's me.
What's that?
See that the picture up there is me at 7 years old.
This one right here. You mind if I click on it?
That's totally
So
fine.
this was about the time where you really started to connect. Oh, so you're actually talking about.
Yes.
Boy, that's kind of funny. So your teacher was Mrs. Finnegan?
Miss Finnegan was my first grade teacher. Yeah, thank God for her. And her opening me up to everything being energy and, infinite eternity and all of that. It was just amazing.
That's beautiful. And I really like that you have like daily reads and that sort of thing. There's just a lot to follow there. The reason why I'm laughing is because I always tell a story about, whenever I do a live circle, I definitely appreciate the entertainment only purposes of it. So I make sure that there's plenty of comedy involved with it. And this, one of the stories that I tell is talking about jumping off of Johnny Finnegan's roof.
Oh.
Because you do stuff that you're not always crazy about. And I had hair out to here and hair down to here, and I was living on a prayer, and we all have things we're not proud of. And for me, I jumped off of Johnny Finnegan's roof and nothing but a helmet, Vikings helmet. Yeah, it's kind of awkward, but
I wonder if they were related.
Oh gosh, don't put that sin on your soul. Like, just don't. just don't. But it's but again, all of the links down below, you can get these beautiful decks. And I know that you have one of your specials, which was kind of how Beth came connected to it, how we're now getting our people connected to this deck, as well as your 2-for-1. And it also comes with, time with you as well. You'll deliver a reading and whatnot. So I just think it's a beautiful, I don't want to say marketing technique, but I think you really found the balance on how to deliver this and make sure people are like, hey, this is brand new. Let me show you what I see with this. This is an example, and it speaks to them. I think everything about this is just a really cool way to approach the creative and the spiritual work all together. I'm impressed cover to cover with it, and it's pretty amazing. I can't thank Beth enough for, it's like anything else in this world. Like, you stumble upon it, it's not chance, and then the next thing you know, we're sitting on a podcast talking about how unique this is, not only as a product, but how it can really be part of a path as well. So Beth, how you doing?
Good.
Are you connected? I'm going to sit back and enjoy this.
Me too.
Yeah. So, I gave it a good shuffle. While Brandon was promoting everything, we got some white light here, some protection. While I was shuffling, 2 flew out of the deck. And then shortly after that, 1 flew out. Although while I was shuffling, Megan, this 8-year-old girl was here.
Oh.
And she gave me the image of like a rocky beach, like Maine with the waves, coming in, really, really, really beautiful, but stormy. So let's turn your cards over and see what's going on here. Okay. So the first card is desire to be seen. And I think
hold it right up to the it right up to the camera.
Oops, you got it?
Yep.
Perfect.
So I think I know that this is your path in the here and now, and it's no coincidence we're sitting here on a podcast, desire to be seen, and I'm all over these cards. So and from watching you before, this is clearly a very important path for you, and message. The second card is transformation.
I love that.
Which is you, because I think we talked about earlier that she looks, I think that she was made within your soul spirit, that image. And then the last card is resolution.
How about that?
So what I'm really feeling in these cards is the path to success.
Mm-hmm.
How could it be any different? Does this little girl resonate with you? Because she keeps showing me this.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So when you started talking about it, we used to go to a place, it wasn't in Maine, it was in Cape.
No, but I said it's like a rocky.
Yeah. But it's what you described is exactly where we used to go as a small group. Me, my sisters, my parents, and my Aunt Kathy, Uncle Frank, and my cousin Nick in Cape May, New Jersey. And there was a lighthouse there, and it was very rocky. It's where we would go looking for Cape May diamonds. So as soon as you said that, it was around that age of 8 years old that we would go. And I mean, it resonates with me. I want to sort of sit with who I was at that time. When you said
these cards, Megan, these cards follow that path also.
Yeah.
At that age, you're having your awakening. You have that desire to be seen and understood and within yourself.
Right.
And then, your transformation, and then here lies your resolution.
Yeah, it makes complete sense. I mean, it's beautiful. There's that part of me that's again oh my goodness, wow, thank you. Really? For me sort of thing, but it's beautiful. I mean, it's the message just keeps getting clearer and clearer. And I'm just so thankful and overwhelmed, I think, with the wow. It makes total sense to me.
I'm glad
it took you there, because she's definitely here with that image. So
thank you, Beth.
Good. No, thank you. Thank you so much.
There's a really cool dynamic here that I want to point out, and that is you created those cards, those messages that come connected to them, and then it just also helped you on your path.
Yes. And so it's amazing, right? It's that whole cycle. I mean, the messages are for all of us, including me, right? They were given to me and they're meant for me as well. And it's awesome.
And didn't you tell me, remember when you did my reading and this card came up, you said it's your favorite card in the deck.
It is my favorite.
Yeah.
In the deck. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Why is it your favorite? Why is it your favorite?
I mean, it's just representative of true transformation and embodiment of the soul self with the human self. It's that merger. It's that it's that next level. It's living from your soul. It's transforming the human self into the soul. And it's so symbolic. Plus she looks so pretty. She's beautiful. And but it's what it represents to me, Brandon. That's so That's what it means to me. That's why it's so important to me.
And the essence of that card is truly, when you look at it, is a woman who knows her soul, who's in the becoming.
Yeah.
And I think, in the end, we just want to share the love and the essence of who we are. And that's why we're here.
And I do think that she looks so like confident and comfortable in herself, right? And that's what I mean by like the embodiment. Like she just is, right? And it's that assuredness, that trust within herself. And again, that's like sort of where I've been going, like just accepting and trusting and surrendering to all of this and allowing it to be like this really, it can be this. And that's what
I think it's funny that Beth said to you, even when we first got on in the pre-stuff, you're like, Beth even said to you, this card is you.
Right.
The cover, which is that ended up being the cover of the card. And she said,
what she pulls.
Yeah.
Of course she did. Of course
well, actually, it flew out of the deck. I always say spirit picks them, And
it's really cool. And I think that if you're a professional tarot reader, and I'm going to kind of do a little, 3-card shuffle here, with this work where, I mean, Oracle and Tarot and the way that I teach it is really meant to kind of be like almost like companion models all together. In other words, they're meant to just, there isn't a hierarchy, and it doesn't matter if you work with the Rider-Waite, if you work with the, Gilded Tarot, which is what I do, the Arthurian. I mean, there's so many different, tarot decks, and I don't care. It's funny. We joke about the pumpkin one. There's actually a pumpkin tarot deck. It looks ridiculous, but some people just love it. It's like, it doesn't matter what it is, so long as you understand the, structure. And if it speaks to you, it speaks to you. But, I think it's kind of funny. So for me, I'm going to pull, I'm going to go ahead and go, okay, my first card up, and I'm going to show you how these two things go together with me. I've already done a shuffle there, with the Soul Connection deck. And of course, I use a little bit of smudge. We make sure we clean the energy and move from one to the other. We bring in our bright light, make sure our guides are connected as we ask for the messages to come through that we hope to receive. And we do this work in light, love, and laughter so we can become the best version of ourselves in all the work we are meant to do. Thank you for giving me a chance to do this. And because this is what I'm meant to do for the highest good and the light of the world. And right out of the gate, you have the 8 of Pentacles, which talks about a lot of hard work behind the scenes. Of course, you're going to be 100% into that. And by the way, next up is the Page of Wands. So you've got new ideas, you've got bigger ideas. This is a whole career coming. And I can't believe that the new thing is coming into play. In other words, you're going to stand alone. This is the work you're meant to do. Wow. This is a new fiery idea, and you take the bull by the horn. So just on those 3 cards, look at that, Beth. What do you think of that spread? What do you think about those 3 cards?
Yeah, love it.
Truth.
Truth.
So then how I work, so then how you can use these cards, and again, you can use them standalone, but if you're a professional tarot reader, and I know a lot of people watch this that are like, okay, I want to be connected to, like tricks of the trade and how people work together on this. So in a basic 3-card spread, and again, you can extend this out to a Celtic spread or whatever it is that you work with, and then simply by asking, okay, what does the 8 of Pentacles, let's get some kind of overarching advice as to the soul connection to this card as to why this would come out for Megan. And the question is simply answered with being able to enjoy what you're doing with the laughter card.
I love that.
So this is a reminder to you that all of this hard work, this behind the scenes stuff, quite frankly, is about laughter. And by the way, your book actually talks a little bit about what laughter really means. And that is the sheer joy of kind of bringing it forward.
Yep.
It's just not like
the soul. Yeah.
Because your soul is satisfied when you do that. Well, next up, the page, let's ask in the advice connected to the page. Let's bring in the power. And by the way, if Robin Wright calls, don't answer the phone. Just to let you know. Just to let you know, if it's like Robin White, Wright, Penn Wright, line 1, just go like, I'm not here.
Okay.
But in connection with this, your new ideas, this is going to empower you. So it's going to empower you to shift, to change, to grow, to do whatever it is that you're meant to do. By the way, the new you that's coming out of this, the take the bull by the horns and be who you're supposed to be, connected to the Ace of Wands. I'm just going to give you the intuition card.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough.
Yep.
And it's great because how Beth's read on this is spot on for where you were going. The combination into the tarot. In other words, I hope that you get this, and I hope other people get this when they look at this deck. It is so applicable into all the other things you can do when you're on this journey. Let it speak to your journey in whichever way. And as Beth is a spiritual life coach, she's able to have the cards tell that story. Like, she knew exactly where they went. I let the tarot kind of be like, hey, here's what I want to show her today. And then, oh, by the way, these are the overarching things that are connected to it. There's a lot of application for this deck. So now you kind of understand like why we're like so jazzed about it, because it's
it can go into so many different modalities,
things.
And what you were saying, I wanted to kind of bring up, about laughter, and how it kind of feeds your soul. I remember being at the conference with James Van Praagh, and at the beginning and the end of every day, he would put on music and we had to dance around the room. And he said, when you do those kinds of things, those childlike things, that it feeds your soul, but also raises your vibration so that you can receive. So thank you for that card.
Oh, you're so welcome. I mean, I've always sort of felt like, the soul's natural state is just joy. Like, it's just always vibrating at that level. And so anything that we do to bring it back to its natural state is just like, that's our goal, right? At least from living from the soul, like, continue to go back to the natural state and experience, like, encapsulate your entire experience, like, step back. Okay, I'm a soul, see it from that angle. And then you'll be able to like step into that joy, because when you view it that way, it's like, oh, right, I am a soul. I truly am a soul. And it makes everything else easier and sort of fall away and just lighter.
I love this topic of the soul. I mean, Beth talks in her work a lot about the soul journey. And I mean, having two people that are doing soul work together, for totally different, with totally different techniques, but it's you're doing the same work, and it's so impressive. Like, I think we finally kind of turned the corner with this. Like,
I think that, in these cards also, part of setting your soul free from this 3D life and living the soul purpose that we are here for is forgiveness and and to release fear. So I find that your cards do speak to that, to the council of people sitting in front of me, so I can, as a spiritual life coach, as a medium, as somebody who's reading these cards or being a conduit, the bottom line is when this client leaves, you want to elevate them so that they think about their soul and that they can release, right? And these cards really help do that just with one word.
Yeah. And it does it in such a gentle way. And that's, gentleness is one of the virtues of the soul. So it's like, it does it so gently and so compassionately. You don't have any other, it's not like somebody's hitting you upside the head with a message. It like eases in there, and it's like, oh, it's so much better received when it comes from that like more gentle lens. And it's like, oh, that, because it feels right. Like, it sits better, and it's like you're able to absorb it and take it all in.
It's a softer landing.
Yeah.
And all you need is that little crack in the door.
Yep.
To kind of open it and tell your client, okay, here it is. You open it now, so.
Yeah, your point, Beth, that like so much of it is, we're so fear-based that if you have that crack and you like ease in gently, like you don't have to just like swing the door open and like, face your fear. You can sort of okay, well, I'm going to do it scared, right?
Mhm.
Like, it's
Yeah.
okay. It's easier. It's
Mhm.
to your point, it's a softer landing. That was perfectly
They're
described.
very empowering cards.
Thank
Very
you.
empowering.
Thank you.
This is great. So listen, Megan, thank you so much for being a part of things here today. You know, again, just like Beth said, these are very empowering. We love your journey. We've got some news down the road about, you know, stuff here at Spirit Tree, you know, with you visiting and so forth and so on. We'll wait for the right time for that. But most importantly, being able to be connected, you know, there on the website and get these cards. They're amazing. They're fantastic. And I really think that when you know, grow with this, you know, the thing that I love to talk about is kind of like where this goes and how this, you know, grows for you, you know, and I'm always fascinated with this process because after going through the process and I work on the emotional IQ part of it, as in like, okay, what did I just learn there? And, you know, what do I need to let go and what do I need to focus on and that sort of thing. I would love to invite you back to talk about this on a regular basis, not only this, but then also how you're, you know, the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, because you are this powerhouse conduit that, and the best part is it's like you don't even know it. Like you know it, but you don't even know it. Does that make sense to you?
It does. So I'm just going to keep doing my thing, and then if
Stay humble. Stay humble.
Yes.
Stay humble.
Yeah, I never take credit, Megan. I know where it's
because
coming
it's
from.
spirit, right? It's like, it's
Yeah.
not me. It's
Spirit driven.
thing. Yeah.
Mhm. Well,
That's pretty-
Spirit drove you to just this beautiful deck that we can use on Earth, okay, and
Oh,
get
absolutely.
these incredible soul messages. So thank you. Every
You're so
tarot
welcome.
reader, medium, everybody should have these.
Yeah.
Oh,
If I
thank
can
you.
summarize the perfect compliment, you actually make our job easier.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm so glad. Thank
Does
you.
that make sense?
It does make sense, and I'm glad that I can be of service in that way.
Yeah.
And I totally love that you went for the heart hold on that, because, you know, as we sign off, and again, I want to invite you back, you know, other times here on the podcast, all that other good stuff, you know, and as we start to sign off, we give each other the heart tap, tell one another that we love and care for one another, even though we can't be together right now, and to let them know we care. So Megan, thank you so much for being part of our journey here. We really appreciate
Thank you, Megan.
Thank you guys so much. I love you so much.
I love you too.
Like
Okay.
and subscribe, and make sure that you follow any of the links to get this great deck of cards, book a reading with Megan, get some inspiration and guidance from her. I'll see you guys soon. And remember, keep going.
Love you.